Welcome all to this Microsoft Ignite session. I'm Jack, the Global Sales Team Director servicing the Coca-Cola system based here in Atlanta. With me today is Sven Erlekam, Head of Enabling Technology at Coca-Cola Hellenic, one of the largest Coke bottlers in the world, headquartered in Switzerland. Sven and I have worked together on an Azure migration alongside Intel, Vnomic, and other partners, and it has been a fabulous partnership. Hi, Sven. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Jack. Hello, and thank you for having me. Happy to share with you and all our listeners our Azure journey and the transformation of our technology platform. Before we jump into this, I wanted to share with you quickly a bit more on who is speaking to you and what is the business we are in, that you will understand better why we have done specific choices on our journey. So I'm, as Jack mentioned, working for Coca-Cola Hellenic, which is a beverage business selling products of the Coca-Cola Company exclusively in 29 markets, mainly in South and Eastern Europe, Ireland, Nigeria, and Egypt. We offer a diversified portfolio of beverages in a growing industry. You see the main share are sparkling drinks, water, juice, energy, and recently also we are having an increased focus on coffee and an increased footprint, which we were very happy about. Besides that, we also partner with other beverage businesses such as Monster, Energy, Edrington, Brown-Forman, and Campari, and sell their products. Obviously, taking care of our people and our environment is a key priority for us. We are a team of 36,000 employees, and from a technology perspective, you can imagine these are all our users, together with consumers and customers which are accessing our websites and e-commerce offerings. This puts a lot of pressure on us as an IT organization and also to the platforms which we are operating. They need to be robust and as well operate 24/7. And there is always high expectations to performance and availability. Maintenance should be minimized and tolerance to disruptions is low, especially if customer-facing processes are involved. So in a nutshell, what you should take with you, key priorities for us: customer and consumer centricity, employee experience, and operational productivity. That's imperative for us and driving our decision making. Besides that, and all the business and tech, there are humans behind all that. So these are the people which are driving the Azure migration on a day-to-day basis, and who also help preparing the slides. So thank you to that team, and please feel free to reach out to them. Part of them are answering your questions in the chat, so feel free to chat us during this session. Now the technology background. We are not new to outsourcing. I mean, we have a long history starting in 2010. We changed also providers, which we did a big lift and shift back in 2017, which was obviously part of our DNA. When we did this shift, we went to a new monolithic architecture, which was good at that time and filling our requirements. You will see on the next slides that today this provides us some challenges. And was basically the momentum for change. While we did this outsourcing journey, we started also our first Azure steps with Azure native services in machine learning, with Azure Data Lake, and Jack, happy to talk about this or invite my colleagues to talk about this in another session. So here we come to the challenges. We have, as I said, the monolithic architecture, which are basically split into two machines, with a database scheme, which you can imagine from one big database provider. Unfortunately, over time, these things were potentially in the beginning proportional, but as we have shifting workloads, they became divergent and not proportional anymore. That locks us in today. And having this architecture on AEX makes it also very difficult to migrate, to change, because it's not an open technology and not a cloud agnostic technology. Obviously, this created, as I said, the momentum for change. And you can imagine that we're expecting something else from our current, from our new environment. And that's the challenge we put out to Jack and the team. We were looking for flexibility and scalability. We wanted to handle resource peaks. We wanted to spin up and spin down workload for prototyping, for dev work, stuff which is rather difficult today and with fixed workload. We also have still, you saw it potentially on the other slide, still country computer rooms, 120, so quite a footprint, which leaves room for optimization as well, because they were grown and built in different times with different workloads and came partially to us with mergers and acquisitions. So room of optimization there. Not immediate pressing technical need, but room for optimization, especially when hardware refreshes are in the game. So speed and automation was something else we wanted to leverage. You will hear more about that, how we went about this. And obviously, we wanted to have zero trust built in our new cloud infrastructure. While we were doing that, obviously, we were also using Intel technology for our S4 implementation with Jack. You know, it's not yet on Azure. It will come later, trust me. But well, that was also a transformation which we ran in 2020 to go live with S4 on Intel. So let me continue with what were our driving principles when we were choosing Azure. So we wanted to have a platform which is portable between different cloud providers. We wanted to have our geographic footprint covered, etc. So you can use this for your reference in the post-read of this session. I'm not going to read you all through this slide. So where we got a lot of help from you, and yeah, you for sure appreciated the discussions on how do we group our workload, because it was quite cumbersome for us to get a business case, if you remember, Jack. And we were wondering what is the right approach to that, brought it up and down and right and left. What we needed to start with were obviously landing zones and network connectivity. So we built our Azure gateways, we built our express routes. We also changed our VPN solution into a cloud VPN with Zscaler. So there were several investments which we needed to do in order to be cloud ready. And then we have, as I mentioned before, based on the challenges with our big legacy platform or monolithic platform, refactoring is our priority number one. But you can imagine it's also the hardest to do. We require involvement of our platforms and product managers who change the applications which they own to serve our business with a different database and changes in their applications. Then, as I mentioned, the second priority were the optimization, or is the optimization still of our country computer rooms, wherever we want to avoid hardware investments through the move to Azure. And then, last but not least, we also have commercial off the shelf already running on Intel and open platforms in our outsourced data center today, but still there are opportunities moving them into a container-based environment in Azure or changing databases, etc. Then what you see here, if you don't measure, you don't know how you're going and if you're doing well. So what we put out to ourselves is this kind of, I don't know how I should call it, a waterfall diagram of cores and workload. So by the end of this year, we want to have reduced all these green boxes. You see, we are optimistic. We have not moved all of them, but we marked them already green. So the green boxes are supposed to be moved by end of this year. You will see on one of the next slides that we are in a good way. And then obviously we will continue this journey until all the gray boxes are hopefully diminished by end of 2023, 24 latest. That's our target. So when we started the journey, we were wondering what options to take. You can imagine that an experienced team which had great experience with Big Bang, that's where we were running to. And you can imagine all our consulting partners, technology consulting partners saying, yeah, Big Bang is the way to go to. What we had to realize is that in a world with products and business driving the priorities for us, as I explained to you in the beginning, well, suddenly Big Bang was not working any longer. We decided for an approach which was called wave approach. Today we could call it potentially increments and sprints, where we wanted to focus and give the gear a bit to the business and to the product and platform owners. Because if I ask them to refactor, they need to have a voice. They need to say when is the right time to serve business requirements and when is the right time to work on technical depth. So, and when they can combine it. So this is why we came to a wave approach or an increment approach, which goes very well with our scaled agile framework. So yeah, this is what we decided for, and that's what is delivering us the biggest value. It's sometimes not bringing. In the first look, it would not bring the speed. If you think over a long time, I think it's making us also faster because when the people go about it, they really execute, and they execute very targeted. They own it. Also, it allows us to onboard continuously learnings and improvements, because with every workload you migrate, you learn something, and this is what we can reflect on the go. And also, it allows us to be selective about native technologies like Kubernetes, which we can use for dedicated workload, which in a lift and shift environment, you wouldn't have the room and the time to do so. So for us, that was the right choice. Obviously, everybody has to make different choice or his choice based on his environment. I'm stating that what was working for Coca-Cola Hellenic or is working for Coca-Cola Hellenic at the moment. If we continue to the next slide, you see what we achieved. So from a lean perspective, I would say we are here having a continuous flow of delivery. This is just a reference picture. I think it's not fully complete. There are other stuff which we managed to complete even on top. I mentioned to you that the data journey, which is not reflected here. So all the green spots are migrated. These are country computer rooms, as you see. It's a specific off-the-shelf solutions, and you see also increasingly since end of last year, when we started to move with the support of Vnomic, the first SAP supply chain management system in a POC to Azure. A lot of sizing had been done there with great support from Intel, trying to find out the right sizing for the needs we had here. You see then we followed with more development and quality systems. The first production system of Solution Manager followed in August this year. In parallel, consolidating country computer rooms. If you wonder why Netherlands is here, it's not part of our territory, but we have an office there. That's why you see the servers from there. I think.
Sven, what about I noticed the CCM module is painted red. Can you share more about that?
Should I really mention about red stuff? Okay. Yeah, I mean, as I said, we want to experiment and try, and we were a bit ambitious here. When, as I explained, we went live with S4, you know that, and then we had some challenges in application servers, and we thought, let's try to put application servers for some heavy jobs into Azure, but due to network latency, we didn't manage to get it work. If somebody tells us the secret, we will make it work. But so far that did not work. But that's part of the journey. As I said, we are learning and improving. You also see Citrix. Many people might be on the cloud for that for some time already. For us, it worked, but there was no business case which we could make work back then. That's why we scheduled it for this year. I think now we have a business case, and towards the end of the year, we'll also drive Citrix in the cloud. What you see here, I mean, is the different boxes don't necessarily show you the workload. So some systems are easier to do, and as you see, SDO, it's the small box is another one as the other ones, but it's a major refactoring effort, which the team drives greatly, and it's also bringing us a lot of new technology, which we are learning. All this you cannot do without a great partner environment and a partner ecosystem. We obviously have loads of knowledge in-house, but not everything. And the team, as I said, is learning, onboarding new skills. But without Intel, Microsoft, and Vnomic, we would not have been able to make it. Vnomic was helping us with scripts to accelerate and get us going very fast with the proof of concept, as I mentioned before, but also with deploying further sub workloads. And we continue the collaboration here as we have more sub workloads to migrate. Jack, your team helped us with great support with designated engineers, I think is the term you're using for your support model, unified support, where we get really good help in the moment we need it, because we'll come to it. Sometimes you face issues and then you need skills on the ground, which you didn't plan for. And right sizing, I think, is of great help, and better performance is what I mentioned in the beginning we need. And here the collaboration with Intel was extremely and is extremely powerful and value adding. Good. So waves rather than Big Bang. Yeah, that's I think I transferred that very passionately, that this is one of our main learnings, but there are other learnings we have, that the solid design of landing zones from day one is something which, Jack, your team was always preaching, but when you do it, you're learning it, and you know what it means in terms of getting policies right, getting identities right. Well, you can correct it, but if you have to correct it, you have to stop to it right and then move on. So it's slowing you down. Database migrations is a favorite topic of mine. As you see, we went into a very diverse environment from a very on one provider focused in the past. So we are leveraging, among others, PostgreSQL. We are leveraging increasingly MS SQL. And when you do these migrations, you have tools. They automate the process. I mean, you can just do that with the automated tools. However, don't underestimate that these tools don't resolve proper designing, thinking, and respectively performance testing. We had to learn that even if you have good user feedback, when you send hundreds of users on a database, it behaves differently. This sounds very logical, but it's very difficult sometimes to create the right testing automation in a lab to have all the different situations constructed in a test case, which you require in order to ensure that you have proper performance. So we keep a focus for any further refactoring, because that's one thing where we can always be hit. CIS hardening, security, you can imagine in a company like ours, is extremely important, I guess, for all of you here in the room. So we had learning here with CIS hardening. Vnomic was also here helping us very quickly. We improved the scripts and the templates used, and now any further systems are hardened as we needed. And I may have read it, and learned it, and people told me, but networking and again networking is key, especially in a hybrid cloud where you have still on-prem stuff, where you have country stuff. You need to be really, and you have, as you saw, our geographical footprint, different ISPs involved, different FTP, SFTP providers. So networking is really key to make things going, and especially with a lot of security policies in between and certificates and Azure Key Vault playing in, which is all there for good reasons and to secure. But to make it go, you really need to design carefully, you need to configure carefully, and obviously also test it, as I mentioned. Last but not least, whatever you design, architect, you may have a problem, and here you require a team that owns the problem and their solution. And you saw the number of partners, and that was just a subset of partners which I showed you. It's very easy, the people to say, it's not me, it's him, it's her, but if you have a problem, if you get the people in the call, if the people say, well, I can contribute here, I can contribute here, you have half of the solution already, because you have not only the skills, but you have the people who just want to resolve it. And obviously they need to resolve it fast. When I say fast, I think there is this difference between responsiveness and speed. You can be fast, but have reacted too late. So it's important to be on time when the issue appears and to get the things delivered with agility. I think the other thing with the team spirit I mentioned, and well, I don't want to give the impression that chaos and all the time messing around is the solution, but discipline and structure in all the approach, and also in a responsive and agile environment is key in order to speak the same language and to get the things done in a disciplined way, and to have a continuous flow as you saw it in the plan before.
Thank you, Sven. This has been a truly amazing expose on your Azure migration in the Coca-Cola Hellenic context. For our audience, we have the call to action here. There are some links from Intel and from Vnomic that we'd recommend you check into. I'd like to also thank Sven for sharing his insights today on the Azure migration, and thank Coca-Cola Hellenic, Intel, Vnomic, and our other partners who have made this migration so successful.